What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another X-Men review. Today we are going to be reviewing X-Men 2 or X2. I'm very excited because this is one of the best X-Men movies ever made for a lot of reasons, which we will get into. But before that, let's start at the very beginning. Let's go all the way back at the beginning of the movie and start with talk about how this kind of starts. So, the movie starts in the White House. Now, the White House is under attack by Nightcrawler. We get to see Nightcrawler in this movie, and that was pretty awesome. Got to see him again. One of my favorite, I kind of said this in my last review, but again, one of the best parts about these movies was the way they introduced powers and abilities. I found that amazing. They always did a good job of showing you, they do this great build up to their power and what it can do. And when they finally show you their ability, it's pretty spectacular to see. So Nightcrawler's fighting with with Homeland Security, just jumping from guy to guy, beating them all up. It was visually fantastic to watch as he's just teleporting. The way they did the teleport effect with the little smoke effect. Oh, it's so good. I love the way they did that. A little after image effect almost. That was really cool. So, after Nightcrawler gets done beating up all the freaking... Now, the reason why he's here we'll get into later, but after Nightcrawler gets done beating up all the Homeland Security guys, he finally makes his way to the president, and he's about to kill he looks like he's about to kill the president, but then he gets shot, and then he freaks out and teleports away. So yeah, that was really an intense beginning to a movie. Especially an X-Men movie. A very political way to open up the movie. Again, I said this in my last review. X-Men movies. Very political. But not like these days where politics suck. More in a cool way where politics are kind of tense and they're kind of whatever. But politics are tense, what am I saying? So, anyway, we cut back to Alkali Lake, because if you guys remember in the last movie, Wolverine was searching for Alkali Lake, and he was trying to get some answers to his past. So we're still going off of that arc from what he had in the first movie to this movie, and you'll see more. But you will definitely see more of Wolverine's past in this movie and how that all shapes up. But so Wolverine goes to Alkali Lake. He doesn't find nothing, so he ends up leaving. And then we're cut to this big museum, this big, awesome, cool-looking museum. We get to see our favorites again. We get to see Storm. We get to see Jean Grey, Cyclops. And during this little thing, Jean has a little breakdown. She's like hearing everyone's thoughts. Again, further pushing for the next movie already. Because if you guys don't already know, we will get to it when we get to the end of the movie. But if you guys have seen The Last Stand, you know where Jean's arc's going. So Jean has a meltdown. Meanwhile, Rogue, we get to see Rogue again. We get to see Iceman. We get to see Pyro. And they're having a little dispute with these kids because someone takes Pyro's lighter and he gets all mad. So he kind of messes with them a bit, but then Professor X just shows up. And I forgot to mention this. I'm so sorry. I forgot to mention this in my last review of X-Men. Every time I see Patrick Stewart roll in as Professor X, I get the biggest cheesy smile on my face because it's like, you're like, oh my gosh, it's Professor X. Like, oh my gosh, it's so cool. But man, I got like every time that when he is introduced into I mean, the first movie did a great job. The second movie did a great job too. Everyone's just froze because he froze everyone. He just kind of I guess he mentally froze everyone. I guess he has the power to do that. So I guess he just mentally shut down everyone's minds for a minute. It's possible. I don't really know exactly what he did. But yeah, he rolls up, he, is like, hey, don't show off, and then they all kind of take off because they find out that the White House was under attack. So that's where everything just kind of starts for the X-Men. But like I said, great introductions to all the characters. Man, I really love Professor X in these movies. Really do. I forgot to talk more about Professor X in the last movie. I'm so disappointed in myself that I didn't do that, but hopefully I do a little bit more here. Even though his role is, well, no, he actually has a big role in this movie, but probably not. I don't know if it was as big as the first one. I don't know. We'll get into that. All right, so this is the White House aftermath. So we get to see Stryker. So Stryker's in this movie. Then we get to see Lady Deathstrike. Lady Deathstrike. Oh my goodness. Like, I think one of the, it's kind of crazy how they made her so intimidating. Like Lady Deathstrike, if I remember correctly, was a robot. She was like a robot. I think she was once a robot. I don't know, but in the movie, she is a lot like Wolverine, where she's got like claws, but instead of them coming out of like her hands like this, it's her fingernails. So she's got like 5. So she's got like 10 like claws on her fingernails. And man, I'll get to more of that when we get to the later in this review, but yeah, and then she always does this thing where she cracks her knuckles really loudly. It's probably why a lot of us kids used to crack our knuckles because of that movie. But yeah, we got to see our first introductions to Stryker and Lady Deathstrike, and that was pretty interesting to watch. So Stryker talking to the president, talking about the mutants being a danger, and he was actually talking to him about the X-Mansion, about the school. Which we will get to later, because there's a lot going on there. Anyway, let's get back to the X-Mansion. So Iceman and Rogue got this relationship going on, believe it or not. And then Wolverine returns. They say hi. Wolverine makes a joke about how do you guys, you know, which then, you know, Iceman's like, we're still working on it. So I figured I'll take a minute and talk about Iceman, because I feel like Iceman is a character these days that not a lot of people talk about anymore because of what happened in the comics. Because Bobby Drake, Iceman, used to be the straightest man, like Johnny Storm levels of, like, he was like Johnny Storm except ice. That was literally Bobby Drake. And, you know, in the comics, they made him gay. And a lot of people were not happy about that. A lot of people have not been happy about that for years. Me, myself included, because it really, really wrecks everything. It really, really wrecks all the pre-established stuff. So, yeah, just want to point that out, that this is the straight version of Iceman. Everyone's favorite Iceman. So yeah, let's move along. So we cut to a scene where Stryker shows us some type of mind control agent that he uses on Magneto, where he takes this little syringe and like there's this little hole in his neck, and he like puts the stuff in it, and it like mind controls Magneto, and then he tells him where the X-Mansion is. So that's when this shit kind of spirals out of control. But meanwhile, the X-Men are searching for Nightcrawler, because Nightcrawler was responsible for the attack on the White House, and they want some answers about why he did it. So Jean Grey and Storm go out and look for him. Meanwhile, Mystique searches for Magneto. Wow, people are just searching for everyone these days. So Mystique goes on this search for Magneto. She finds out about a second Cerebro that Stryker is building. And it starts escalating from there. It gets kind of crazy. So then we cut back to the X-Mansion, where Wolverine's dreaming about Alkali Lake and what happened to him a long time ago. We got to see a little bit more clips of him, of the tests of them putting the animatium into him. We got to see, I don't know if I said this, I talked about this scene in the last review, But there's a scene that I think when he's dreaming where he runs out of this cave just bloody and naked, and he's just got his claws out and he's just like screaming like, ah. Like this movie, whew, dark. That is really dark. Like, that is probably way darker than, for example, X-Men Origins Wolverine. Okay, I mean, he goes, because he barely killed anyone in that movie, when he escaped the facility. But in this movie, no, they're like, okay, very dark. They're experimenting on him like an animal. He breaks out. He kills countless amount of people to get out, and he's just covered in their blood, and it's disgusting. It's really fucking creepy. And this dark tunnel, the way that they did the shots were very dark. Because Marvel does have dark heroes, so they do have the ability to go dark with some spots. But again, Marvel, especially these days, Marvel has always been looked at as this very, ooh, look at us, we're so happy and everything's A-okay. But no, there's some dark heroes in the Marvel Universe that we don't really talk about a lot anymore. And Wolverine is one of those heroes. The reason why people still talk about Wolverine is because Wolverine is, again, really popular. But again, there are a lot of ones that are not that popular that are violent, like Blade, Ghost Rider, straight up murder. Like that's them in a nutshell. That's how they work. All right, so let's move on. So Professor X goes to pay Magneto a visit. And he's got Cyclops with him as his little bodyguard. So what happens is that Magneto tells Professor X that Stryker paid him a visit and told him about the X-Mansion and pretty much everything. And Professor X freaks out. They gas the chamber, the little prison cell that he's in. Cyclops starts trying to fight all the guards, but then Lady Deathstrike shows up at her cracking knuckles and beat Cyclops' ass, which sucked. Man, I'm sick of it. I want Cyclops to beat some ass more. But whatever. So, they get kidnapped. Wolverine and Iceman have a chat after his nightmare. They're just kind of, talking, teacher to student type thing. They're just, relaxing. But then, one of the greatest scenes ever. One of the greatest moments, I think, in the X-Men franchise ever. The X-Mansion gets attacked. And this is why a lot of people consider this the Wolverine movie. Because you're seeing Wolverine's flashbacks, and then you're seeing a lot of action from Wolverine. This was Wolverine's shining moment back then. This was like his big thing in the early 2000s. Because when the X-Mansion's under attack, oh man, it got tense. It got real tense. Freaking one of the guys tries to come up and like get Wolverine, but then he gets all angry, pops his claws out. The guy's like, uh-oh, stabs him right in the chest, right in front of fucking Iceman. It was like, whoa. And he starts stealth attacking all the dudes in the building. Oh man. And then there's the scene where he jumps from the fucking ledge and just stabs the two four guys, and man, and then he stabs that guy's toes, and man, so great. Like, he had so many great kills and so many great action scenes in this one fucking scene, in this one part of the movie. It was pretty intense, pretty crazy, pretty awesome. But it wasn't just all Wolverine, because again, like I said, this is also an X-Men story. We got some Colossus, baby. So one of my biggest criticisms with the Deadpool movies was we never got to see Colossus without his armor. Because one of the biggest criticisms was excuse me. One of the biggest criticisms was he was he was CGI. Like Cyclops in the Deadpool movies was just the CGI character. But in this, he's an actual character. Like, you actually see the man himself. And I love the way they have him put his armor on. It's so cool. It looks great. So Colossus kicks some ass in this movie too. It was pretty awesome. He was saving some of the students too. I love that they're just trying to shoot him and then nothing's working. And he just throws them through the frickin' wall. That's so cool. I get all giddy with that shit because it's awesome. Again, this whole scene when the X Mansion's under attack and the kids are running trying to get to safety, and Wolverine's just ripping and tearing and Colossus is beating ass. This is awesome. You can't get no more awesome than this. Seriously, this is great. But then we get to a scene where Colossus takes off with the rest of the kids, and then Wolverine stays behind to basically murder them all. It seems like he's really willing to kill every single one of them. But then he gets to meet Stryker, and then he kind of puts the claws away because again he's still at this point he's still trying to figure out who he is and what happened to him and things like that. So I guess at that point he's just willing to listen to him talk, willing to listen to him what he has to say. But Rogue and Iceman weren't having that, so they saved Wolverine and they got out of there. So, again, that Wolverine scene was awesome. Wolverine and that entire X Mansion raid was the best. It was like the best part of the movie, hands down. Like, that was awesome, man. It really, really was. That was definitely the highlight of the movie. Man, the build-up was just so cool. And yeah, Wolverine was right. You picked the wrong house, bub. That was great. I loved that whole scene. It was great. You cannot tell me that was bad. That whole thing was amazing. Because he's stabbing fools, and there's some blood. There's a little bit of blood, but again, it's PG-13, so it can't show too much blood. But again, you know, I wouldn't expect that in an X-Men movie anyway. But whatever. So, okay, so Stryker infiltrates Cerebro. He actually is able to get underground under the school to their base, and he gets into Cerebro, and he takes 6 students. And honestly, that was pretty good. I mean, they pretty much saved all the kids. It was just 6 students they unfortunately were not able to save. But yeah, man, that was a really, really intense scene. That whole thing was just crazy. Alright then, so let's calm down, and let's talk about... There was a Dr. Hank McCoy cameo in this movie. It's kind of funny. I never noticed it until I watched it for this review. I never noticed that it was Dr. Hank on the TV. It's crazy. I never recognized that cameo before. But anyway, Mystique has fun with this guard, but in reality, she's just trying to seduce him so that she can inject some metal into him so that she can have Magneto get out of jail, which is what happens. Alright, so Stryker's personal vendetta. Okay, so this is where we get to... So this is where the movie kind of tries to give us reason why Stryker hates mutants, why he doesn't like them, yada, yada, yada. So the movie does this thing where it says, you know, his son was a mutant. His son, Stryker's son, used to be a student of Professor X, but Professor X was not able to help him. So what ended up happening was his wife was murdered by their son, and then yeah, so it was just bad. It was really, really bad. But what was worse was that Stryker turned his son into a weapon, because this is where we get into, you know, he's still a bad guy. We still have to make sure he's a bad guy type thing. But then we come to find out Stryker is the one who arranged the attack on the president, because he's trying to spark the war between the mutants and the, again, it's Snake Eater bullshit. It's just, again, a political game to just get them to fight. That's the whole point. Alright, so then we get to Iceman, Wolverine, and Pyro, and Rogue. They arrive at Iceman's parents' house because they got nowhere to go. So we basically got some downtime here in the movie. So Iceman tries to have some fun with Rogue, and he tried real hard. You gotta respect the boy. Like, he really tried. But again, can't touch her for too long because you're gonna die. So yeah. And then Wolverine tries to scare a cat, and then the cat just ends up licking his claws. Because why not? But then Bobby's parents arrive, and then, yeah. So then Magneto breaks out. Very gruesome. Very, very gruesome. I mean, very, very gruesome scene. I mean, Magneto just lifts this guard up into the air, takes the metal in his bloodstream, takes the metal out of his bloodstream. Like he's pulling it out of his chest. Instant death. Like, he just killed all your blood vessels. You're just dead. So yeah, he's dead. Then he breaks out, and yeah. Yeah, that was rough. So then Iceman comes out of the closet to his parents. No, not the gay way. But he tells them about his powers and abilities and what he can do and things like that. But then his little bro calls the cops because he's a little dipshit. And then we got a very tense scene between the cops and Wolverine and Pyro and those guys. But before that happens, Jean calls Wolverine on the X-Phone. The X-Phone that they found in Cyclops' car that Wolverine used to get away. Which is so fucking silly. The X-Phone. I call it the X-Phone because you get it? Because it's got an X on it. So cheesy. But yeah. But that was before that tense scene with the cops. But when that happens, Wolverine gets shot in the head. He's out cold, and then Pyro just decides, I'm just gonna fight the cops. So then he starts blowing up the cars, and then Rogue's not having that. So she decides to take the glove off and just give him a tap on the ankle, and then he's getting drained. She's putting out the fires. It's great because, again, we're seeing Rogue evolve, because we're seeing her learning how to use powers, because in the last movie, we didn't really see her use other people's powers, but in this movie, we're actually seeing her use other people's powers, which is great, because that's how Rogue works. But that's awesome. I love to see that. And the Blackbird arrives. It's awesome the way it lands. A lot of funny shots in there. It was great. Meanwhile, Jason, Stryker's son, is having a bunch of mind games with Professor X. Kind of fucked up, to be honest. I mean, there's a scene where Professor X looks like he's standing up, but then he realizes that it's just in his head, and then Jason again is just fucking with him. But then we cut back to the Blackbird. They're flying away. But then apparently, which to my surprise, apparently the U.S. military exists in this fucking universe. A bunch of air pilots, two aircraft carriers show up, and they attempt to shoot down the Blackbird. Because what did you think was going to happen? You're not even invisible, Storm. I mean, you're just flying through the air. Like, everyone can see you. But then the plane gets shut down. But then here comes Magneto to save the day and save the X-Men from crashing and burning terribly. Alright, so, man, I wrote a lot of shit down. I'm going to say that right now. Alright, so then Magneto starts working with the X-Men to help free Professor X and the kids and stop Stryker from unleashing his diabolical plan to kill all the mutants. So we find out what Stryker's plan is, which is to kill all the mutants via using Professor X to use the second Cerebro to kill all the mutants. That's his plan. So after a camp in the woods, the Blackbird is finally fixed. And then the X-Men and Magneto create a plan to get inside Alkali Lake, save the day, and beat Stryker once and for all. Very comic booky. So they have this plan to have Mystique go in pretending to be Wolverine. But then Stryker realizes, wait, that's not Wolverine. And then she breaks out. She gets into the control room. She lets the rest of the X-Men and Magneto in. And then Storm plans to rescue the kids. While Wolverine just kind of takes off because he just wants to go find Stryker. So he went AWOL as soon as they got in. So yeah, Stryker attempts to kill every mutant on the planet, and he almost succeeds. Because again, at the beginning of the movie, which I did not, because again, I'm talking so much, I'm not even realizing I'm not bringing up key points. At the beginning of the movie, there's a scene where Wolverine and Professor X are in Cerebro, and they're just kind of talking about Alkali Lake, and they're talking about what Professor X is doing with Cerebro and stuff. And they mention this at the beginning of the movie. They say if Professor X ever wanted to, if he ever concentrated hard enough on mutants, he could kill them. And apparently Stryker knew that, so he decided to use Professor X to kill all the mutants. That was the goal. But anyway, moving on. I just felt like I had to say that before I moved on any further. But then we have the Jean versus Cyclops fight, because like I said, Cyclops got kidnapped, unfortunately. So then Jean and Cyclops have this little debacle, and then they end up breaking the dam. They end up cracking it, and then that's what kind of sets in motion the events that are about to happen. So then we cut to Nightcrawler and Storm. They rescue the kids. It's great. It's awesome. We see Wolverine finds the Animatium chamber. And Stryker, and it was really cool, really dark the way they shot it, very old. Like I think, like one of the things about that I noticed about that I loved about the movie was that the movie's like, yeah, this was a long time ago. This was a long time ago. So this facility looks like it hasn't been used in a long time. Yes, the Animatium is still boiling, because one of the cool things they did with the Animatium is, you know, Stryker, when he's finally talking to Wolverine, he's like, when it comes to Animatium, they have to keep it hot, because if it cools, it's indestructible. And again, further giving you that analysis on Wolverine's claws, that it's indestructible, it's unbreakable. So that's really cool. I really love that. And then we get another awesome fight between Wolverine and Lady Deathstrike. And man, again, it feels like an X-Men movie, but also a Wolverine movie. Again, because Lady Deathstrike, I believe, is a Wolverine villain. So again, it feels very Wolverine. It feels like a Wolverine movie, but also feels like an X-Men movie. So again, it does this thing where it's kind of like both. So again, we get this awesome fight between them. The way he kills Lady Deathstrike, kind of gruesome. To be fair, she was gonna murder. She was gonna cut him. She was cutting him up real good, and it was kind of cool and it was kind of funny at the same time. When he finally sees her claws for the first time, he's like, "Oh shit!" And I think she had the Animatium on her nails. I think she did, because that's what it looked like. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure she's never had the Animatium in the comics before. I might be wrong. Again, I don't really read Wolverine or X-Men comics, but I have enough of a brief history in it. But yeah, man, the way he kills her, he takes that Animatium, man, that little syringe, he just shanks her with it, and he pushes the button, he just pours out all that hot Animatium. I just realized this is sounding like a sex joke. but again, he just puts the there's no way to say this without sounding sexual. Okay, so he puts the Animatium in her body, and then it hardens, and then she's fucking dead. But it was gruesome. The Animatium's like coming from her eyes and shit, man. It was pretty gruesome. All right, let's move on. because I just realized this review's like 30 minutes long. Okay, so then we cut to Magneto. He finally is able to find Professor X, and he is finally able to stop Professor X from killing all the mutants. But then Magneto does his typical bullshit where he has Mystique tell Jason to kill all the humans now. So now, instead of killing all the mutants, now he's killing all the humans. So, meanwhile, while this is happening, Wolverine catches up with Stryker and ties his ass up, and he's just pissed. But then Stryker tells him, you were the one who wanted the procedure. You were the one who wanted the claws. So yeah, this movie does this, and I think that was like it wasn't the last conversation that they had, but that was like the last conversation they had involving his past. So they kind of still left it open-ended there. So you can kind of interpretate what happened and things like that. But you get the general gist of the whole thing. It seemed they went really, really comic booky with the way they did his origin. Just a little bit. So then Storm and Nightcrawler rescue Professor X. It was kind of a mindfuck. It was kind of weird. It was kind of a weird scene. But then the X-Men are trying to escape Alkali Lake. Wolverine catches up. Rogue saves the X-Men apparently, because then she's flying the Blackbird and then she lands it. Well, that happens. But yeah, then Wolverine ends up having his last words with Stryker. And then I think Stryker dies at the end of this movie, so I don't think we're seeing him again. But then we get the emotional scene that happens in the film. The Blackbird, for some reason, isn't taking off, even though it just was. Maybe it was that hard crash landing from Rogue. But anyway, Jean ends up sacrificing herself to save the X-Men. But in order to do so, she has to kind of unleash the Phoenix. So, again, that's kind of teasing the next movie a little bit. Again, there's a lot of teasing the third movie here. So, yeah, very emotional scene. Cyclops is in distraught. I mean, Wolverine's in distraught. He's all emotional about it, too, because they both loved her. There's always this weird triangle where Wolverine really likes Jean, but then Cyclops is with Jean. This type of thing. So yeah, then again, the Phoenix. I'll talk more about the Phoenix when we get. I'm not gonna really get into too much detail here about it, but what I will say is that the Phoenix is no bueno, no good. So yeah, the big bad guy. Anyway. So they wrap up with a touching funeral for Jean, and then yeah, that was pretty much it. And then the X-Men pay the president a visit to prevent the war, and that was it. That was the ending. So yeah, man. I had to rush a bit through some things, but because this is a 30-minute video, but really great X-Men movie. One of the best X-Men movies I have ever... It was probably as good as I remembered. When I went back and I watched the first X-Men movie, I was surprised because that was better than I remembered. But this movie was as good as I remembered. Which, I mean, we're talking about a 10 out of 10 movie here. I mean, you kind of expect it to be the same. But anyway, but yeah, you know where I'm going with this. But yeah, my final thoughts. One of the best X-Men movies ever made. Again, very hard to go through all the details in this movie. I feel like I've missed some things, but again, I was just trying to give you the general plot here about how this moved forward, but and some of my favorite scenes, some of my favorite characters, things like that. But yeah, man, really long review here. So I'm gonna wrap it up by saying X2, 10 out of 10. Amazing movie. I love it. It's great. You should watch it if you're an X-Men fan, or if you have any interest in X-Men fans, or if you're a Wolverine fan. This is definitely the X-Men movie you should always go back to. So with that being said, thank you guys for watching, and I'm out of here. Up, and away. See you guys.